Mr. Dermot Kelly.
But I knew Richard Harris very well, certainly around the 50s. And to those of you who don't know me or have never heard of me, I used to be known as the singing bank manager with John the Man. Now I'm known as the sinking bank manager. But anyway, I knew Richard very well, and when I was young, I was in plays in the Playhouse as a walk-on boy, and then subsequently I was in the College Players. Now Richard Harris was in the present Players, they had a group, and as far as I know, he was only in one play. But we used to go to dances like you'd go to, you know, every Sunday night down in the Stella. And very often, Richard Harris would say to me, "Dermot, I'll walk home with you." And he'd be talking about singing, and he'd be talking about poems on the stage. And at this stage now, apart from doing all sorts of turns at parties, and you know, he could do Peter Houston off, he could do the whole lot. He never had any public appearance. So anyway, he eventually, he said to me, Dermot, he said, "Would you like to come out to, I forget the name of the house on the Ennis Road, next week?" He said. He knew I was in the same type of stuff. And I will have a tape recorder, he said. And I'll do my stuff, he said, and you do your stuff. And I went out, and we were in the sitting room, and he had bottles of stout laid out, and the tape recorder, and we did our stuff, you know. And then he was talking about when he was sick. He said, "You know, I used to sleep on the top of the house, and nobody ever came near me." He said, "The only people who came near me were the young monsters, my team," he said. And he said, "Come up and I'll show you." So he showed me the room. It was full of papers and everything. He said, "Did you ever," he said, "did you ever read any of my poems?" I said I didn't. So he brought down this book and he started reading the poems. Some of them probably the ones that Barney was reading. And I turned to him, and when I retired from the bank, he sent a message to me where the thing was on, a kind of a video message, and he recalled this. And I said to him, "Harris, you're a fucking genius," I said. "Go away and be an actor." And he said, "That's how I arrived in London." But anyway, I don't want to delay you too long, but this is a book of stuff that I've written myself. My mentor and advisor there, Dominic, would know all about this. I have lots of poems I've written about different things. But I had one about Richard Harris, which kind of, you know, a very short little story, but it refers to this particular thing. And this is the story I wrote about him. Limerick, 1953. Richard Harris and myself were good buddies. I was 21 and he was 24, or thereabouts. He played rugby and I played hurling. And although both of us achieved a medium of success at the above sports, our abiding passion was the stage. The College Players was a local repertory stage company in Limerick, producing a minimum of 4 plays in a season. From an early age, because my father was involved in the stage company, wherever there was a walk-on part for a boy, I was generally called upon. Richard, on the other hand, was even more stage-struck than me, but did not get involved until his late teens. Having said that, there was fire burning in his breast for the world stage. He was a natural. The years rolled on and Richard went to work in the family business, and I got a job in the Bank of Ireland in Limerick City. At this stage, a company of university players from Galway opened a season of plays at a seaside resort, Kilkee, some 50 miles from Limerick City. This is absolutely true. My late brother, Sean O'Kelly, at the time a student at UCG, was manager of the company. Richard happened to be on holidays there and at the time got involved with student actors. This was just his idea of heaven, and come hell or high water, despite pleas and threats from his father to get back to the Harris flour milling business in Limerick, Richard was still in permanent theatre. But many venues, at permanent theatre. His programme, I mentioned, his programme would include Shakespeare, Othello, Merchant of Venice, Irish poets, etc. MacLeod. He was a sailing ship without a sail. Anyway, but all that was about to change. As a character, he was restless and, as they say in Limerick, all over the place. An aunt of his died and left him a small inheritance in her will, and before his father knew it, he was gone to London to train to be an actor. Nobody knows how he did it, but whatever about his father getting him back to Kilkee to his job in the mill, there was no hope of getting him back from London. Richard also cracked RADA and, as quick as a wink, produced and starred in The Ginger Man on the West End. All the time I was a frustrated bank clerk and envied Richard. Part of my duties in the bank was to call up to the Harris Mills regularly and have some documents signed by Richard's father. Every time I called on such a mission, he complained about his actor son. What a clown he was. Kilkee with the university crowd, now London, and the fine job he had in the family farm in Limerick. He's some idiot. A scattered Celtic jack-in-the-box. Suddenly he appeared in the film The Sporting Life, all about the trials and tribulations of a young professional rugby player. He was nominated for an Academy Award. Richard was home and dried, and what progress. A year later I called to the Harris Mill again with my little bundle of documents for Mr. Harris to sign. He looked at me. Dermot, what about Dickie? Wasn't it great, says I. Do you know what, he says, I always thought that fella was an idiot. Sure, 'tis I'm the fucking idiot. And that's for sure. Kelly, that's for sure.